Hey everybody, it's Natalie with Treasures of Minnie, and we are going to make this card today using the Simon Says Stamp monthly card kit for June. So I already put my stamp that I want to use in my Mini Misty, and I went on and stamped it twice on the watercolor paper that came in the kit. But before I did that, I took a piece of washi tape and I tore it along each edge so that it wasn't a straight edge. And then I stamped the stamp twice. And then here you can see I cleaned off my stamp and I moved it down. I moved it below the bottom portion of the washi tape. And I put a piece of scratch paper over the top portion. And then I put the stamp, or I closed the Misty door to pick up the stamp. And then with the Barely Beige ink pad that came in with the kit this month, I stamped the image again. So I think that'll make sense when you see it in the end. And each time I did stamp it twice so that it was bright enough for you guys to see on camera. So now I've taken the scratch piece of paper off so that you can kind of see what it looks like. So the washi tape was just there for a mask, like, because I wanted that center part to be where a sentiment would go, but I wanted it to look like there were flowers above it and below it. Before I take the tape off, though, I just took a little bit of a paper towel and barely put some on the tip, and then I just kind of rubbed it around in circular motions at the top and the bottom or along the sides of the washi tape so that it would look like there was a shadow there. I hope that made sense. And then I peeled the washi tape off. So once the washi tape's off, this is what you have. I'm going to use my gelatos to watercolor this today. I've been trying to explore some of my older products again, and I have found that the best way to make a palette with your gelatos is to use a piece of watercolor paper. So I scribbled down all the shades of yellow and green that are in my gelatos kit onto some watercolor paper, and you want to scribble it on there pretty thick. And with a water brush, I am going to start with my lightest green and work my way up to my darkest green. So the lightest green is basically like a glaze. You're covering the entire leaf with that lightest shade. And I know you can't see me, but I'm dipping into the colors that I scribbled down onto that little small piece of watercolor paper. I have found that when I scribble the gelatos down on, like, say, a craft mat or some other slick surface like that you get a lot of like crumbs, I guess. It kind of crumbles up. And then I end up getting that all over the place, and then I end up getting that on my card, and I don't know, it just makes a mess, and I end up having to use a whole lot more, it seems like. I saw someone else on YouTube do this method where you just put down kind of a thick blob of the gelato onto some watercolor paper and then just pick it right back up to paint with, and I thought I'd give it a try, and it worked beautifully. I have to say, as far as gelatos goes, this will probably be the way that I watercolor with them from here on out. So again, with all of those smaller leaves, I'm not doing the big ones on the top yet, but all the smaller ones I'm doing, I think this is like a lime green, and I'm doing a thin glaze with the lime green. And you can see I have my colors here from lightest to darkest. So I'm going to go into my next color that's a little bit darker, and I'm going to put that down as well, but I'm not covering the whole leaf. You want to save some of that lime green in the background, and I'm basically just putting it where I think there would be kind of shadows on the leaves. I heard someone the other day kind of explain this when you're watercoloring and you're trying to figure out shadows, to think of it like the new stamps that are out that layer shadows. So, your first stamp that you stamp down with the lightest color has, is mostly solid, and then each time you get a little bit darker with each layer, and each layer has less and less that you lay down. That may have not made any sense at all, and I'm sorry if it didn't, guys. let me know and I can try to do a more in-depth on this process if you want me to, but I'm really only going to show you me coloring or watercoloring these leaves and the larger leaves and one of the roses. And mainly that is because the main reason that I am even showing you guys this card is because this started out so pretty in my head. Oh, hold on. I'm going into my next color now, and you can see each time I'm putting a little bit less. Anyway, in my head, this card was so pretty. And even right now, I'm still thinking it's so pretty. And almost up until the end, I'm loving it. And then everything goes wrong. I don't know if it was because while I was doing this, my family was home and there was a lot going on around me, and I just couldn't concentrate. I was just having an off day. This, at the time, this is a different day that I'm doing the voiceover. At the time, I thought this was the ugliest card I'd ever made in my entire life. And I just didn't like it. But I went back and revisited it and made some changes. And so the main reason for this video is to show you watercoloring, that how to watercolor with gelatos and how to kind of revamp or, you know, change things around once you've already put it together and come up with something that you like. So now for the 4 bigger leaves at the top, you saw that I had 2 yellows. I have a real bright one and more of a pale, warmer one. And I'm going to put the pale down, the lighter yellow down first, and then come back with the brighter yellow and just kind of hit it over it. And then I'm going to follow the same process with the greens that I did with the smaller leaves on the bottom. And I think that these leaves came out gorgeous. I had forgotten how nice it is to watercolor with gelatos, how vibrant the colors are, and I also like how once it's dry, it's set. So I don't have to worry about making muddy messes, because once it's dry, I can layer over it with any color I want, and it's not going to make a mess. So you can see me, I'm still doing all of the same process with the green that I did with the smaller flowers. And I am really liking how it turned out. So here we go. This is all of the leaves done. And I think it's really, really pretty. So I went on and watercolored all of the other flowers, but I was going to let you watch me color this blue one and one of the roses. I basically just laid down a light blue, and then I went back in with a darker blue towards the center of it. And here I'm just using a damp brush. There's no color here. I'm just trying to blend some of those harsh lines. And I used some orange for the center. So on this rose, I'm only showing you the one because I did all the roses the same process, and there's not really a lot of shading that's going on here. I think when you do such a good job on the shading like we did on the leaves, that the smaller spots don't really need it as much. So this is the gold from the gelatos, and then I'm going in with the violet. And I'm not really doing anything special here. I'm just laying it down, and towards the center I do come back in with a little bit more of the color, the pigment on my brush, because it is dark. It should be darker in the center than it is on the edges. You can see me do that here. And I still thought that it looked a little flat, so I went in right here with a little bit of a darker purple. You can see I just did it right there. And I just made some squiggly lines throughout just to hint of more petals. So here's a close-up of the entire piece watercolored with my gelatos. And I'm really loving this right now. I did go in with my white gel pen and add some dots on the centers. And right here, I am pushing down hard with my gel pen and moving quickly so that it would skip. I purposely want it to skip so that I don't have harsh lines, but light highlights. And Right here, I am using an iridescent gold from the Wink of Stella. You can see how it just catches the light really pretty, but it's iridescent, so it's not overpowering. Now for the background, this is some Daniel Smith watercolor that came in the kit, and I'm just going to make a light blue wash. I was just using that block to kind of mix it on because I want it to be really watery, and I'm just going to wash it, kind of move it around and make a background. Now remember, I told you that once the gelato's set, they don't reactivate. So I'm not having to be extremely careful here about touching the blue watercolor to the yellow gelato and getting green. I'm not, just gonna like go crazy and run my brush all over it, but if I can get pretty close to it and it doesn't affect the rest of my painting, which I really enjoyed. So there's nothing special about this, and I think this kind of actually took away from my painting. I think the blue was a little too much or from my image, but it's already done, so we're going with it. But I did take a paper towel and try to pick up some of the pigment. I'm going to do the exact same thing at the bottom, and then I'm going to do some water droplets. Let that set for a minute, and then with a damp paper towel, pick that up. Now, I didn't really think that it picked up a lot, but that's okay. So with the twinkling H2Os, this is some regular gold here, and then I went back in with the iridescent gold and brushed it over to blend it all in. And with a paper towel, I also kind of dabbed that to pick that up too. But I felt like that I lost the edge that made it look like it was standing up off the paper. So with a brown gelato, I just lightly kind of made those edges. I kind of like re-highlighted it. With a gray Tombow marker, I went all the way around the image to kind of make each individual one pop. Hindsight, I could have restamped it in my Misty. Oh well. Off camera, because I didn't know it wasn't running, I tore all of the edges all the way around my image, and with the gold gelato, I rubbed it all around the edges with my finger, rubbed it in, and then with the brown one, I'm barely touching the edges and rubbing it in with my finger a little bit too, because I wanted it to stand out over these two pieces that I'm going to layer up. So these also came from the card kit, and I am using some Tombow to glue all of them together, and then I'm going to glue it onto a white card base, which I changed my mind about later. I'm using this stamp from Avery Elle to stamp the word Celebrate Your Day. And then right here, you see me kind of rubbing the edge of it. I also went around the edge of that with the brown gelato. And now I'm popping it up on some dimensionals and putting it right over this piece. My idea is to take glossy accents and cover this entire spot and then lay the Your Day on top of the glossy accents while it's wet. So the Celebrate part will be glossy and the Your Day will be laying right on top of it. So here's what that looks like, all nice and glossy. And then I'm going to take the Your Day and lay it right on top, and then take a tiny pin and just make sure that I have it straight and the way it's supposed to be. So here it is, and I really just do not like this card. So I'm thinking it's the white base. So I cut all three edges off, except for I don't cut the top where it's folded. I actually opened the card up, cut that along the fold, and then I scored that top piece, folded it back, went ahead and re-rounded the edges, trimmed a little bit off from the back piece to where if I put the card together front and back and fold that edge over, it lines up perfectly. And then I'm going to put a little Tombow on that edge and press it down. Now, you can see there's some pink on here from where I had gone around the edges with the Distress ink, but I used that Tombow eraser, and you can see here it erased it off perfectly. And I re-rounded my edges, and now I have the card. So this is some gems and stones that I got in a My Monthly Hero Arts card kit last month that I'm going to use on here. I will tell you right now, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at putting these on, and I'm not good at putting sequins on. And I'm also going to do some Nuvo drops too. This came in, I think, last month's Simon Says Stamp kit, or maybe the month before. I think it's called Robin Egg. I always go way overboard. But here it is either way. I do not like this card still. So I think it's the Celebrate that I don't like. I don't like the way it came out. So I took it off the next morning. I took it off and I restamped directly onto the card with some Memento Midnight Shimmery ink. And then I traced over it with glossy accents. And I like it a lot better this way. I hope this didn't too crazy sounding and too fast, but until next time, guys, hugs and loves from my craft room to yours.